What's up, gamers?
Hi, my name's Jackson, and I bet you're wondering how I got into this situation. Well, it all started way back when I didn't fucking turn on the microphone that I was speaking into for this entire GD video. So now, you guys will have to listen to audio that was recorded from my laptop's internal microphone, which was on the other side of the room. Hell yes.
I wrote this script to have kind of a fun, flirty energy, but now that I'm sitting down, I feel like I have to adjust. Like, it's like there's a lot of stuff in all caps at the beginning. Are you seeing this?
It looks like a white box.
And I feel like it's not quite appropriate anymore, now that we're just rapping like this, you know? Hi. I'm gonna be watching every streaming exclusive movie all year. I guess I should probably be talking to that camera more than I'm talking to you. Unless, I don't know, maybe I want it closer. Maybe I want it more intimate, you know? If at any point I stop being funny, let me know, and I would appreciate that. Hi. I'm gonna be watching every streaming exclusive movie all year. Here are the rules. I'm covering movies from Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney+, HBO Max, Peacock, and Apple TV+. Thinking about adding Shudder, weighing the pros and cons. It's pretty popular lately. Might be fun. I'm covering every English language narrative feature film. I'm gonna watch them, I'm gonna review them, I'm gonna give them a rating, all in the pursuit of the question. Are streaming services bad for cinema? September turned out to be a pretty small month, relatively speaking. I'm only covering, I think, 11 movies this episode, and Netflix is really running the table this month, with 8 of those 11 movies being theirs, 4 of which are pretty big, expensive movies coming from recognizable talent, which is kind of weird and cool considering that September is notoriously the weirdest month for movie releases. Don't. Yeah? Eyes on me. Don't acknowledge it. Oh, and Disney Plus has Mulan, but that costs money, so it doesn't count. I'm not going to be doing that this episode. I don't know if you guys were looking forward to it, but I'm not going to fucking pay $30 to watch a movie I know I'm not going to like. This honestly kind of feels like the calm before the storm, though, because next month in October, Netflix has new movies from David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin, Apple TV Plus has a new Sofia Coppola and a Cartoon Saloon, Amazon and Hulu are gearing up for a fucking avalanche of horror movies, and fucking Hubie Halloween, Adam Sandler's follow-up to Uncut Gems? Fuck! It's gonna be insane! But anyway, I'm enjoying the slower pace this month, so let's just dig right into it.
Our first movie in September is a little number called Love Guaranteed, a romantic comedy directed by Mark Steven Johnson. Am I reading that right? Mark Steven Johnson? Daredevil Mark Steven Johnson? I don't know, I guess they're both legal thrillers. Look, this thing is, as discussed at the end of the last video, functional, but exhausting. Damon Wayans is suing a dating app because he can't find a GF, and Rachel Lee Cook is his workaholic young lawyer who doesn't have time for love. And I think if you're playing along at home, you've basically got every plot point of this movie pegged just from that one sentence description of the premise. I always say that a movie being predictable is not always a bad thing, but it is a bad thing if what you're predicting is dumb. Because instead of looking forward to something that you're excited about, you're just dreading every scene and you're crossing your fingers, hoping they're not about to lose the case because they fell in love, meaning technically he did find love because of the app, but it doesn't matter because they're happy anyway, and that's what happened. God damn it, fuck. And for the most part, the writing is lazy and not very funny, but the leads are charismatic enough, and in a romantic comedy, that's kind of the most important thing you gotta nail. But even still, it's exhausting. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Sorry, Mark. I'm thinking of Ending Things is a surreal, formalist, abstract movie about well, I mean, I guess I'll let you be the judge of what it's about. When I watched it the first time, I looked at it as a movie about being in a bad relationship and all the different phases of feelings you have in that circumstance spun out into creepy existential vignettes that just sort of poke at you for 2 hours plus and really stick in your brain afterwards. But the more I listened to and read other people dissecting this movie, I came to realize that I think it is actually about something very different than that. Which is not to say that my original interpretation is wrong, but it's the kind of movie that you can have a lot of phases of opinion on, which I think is pretty cool. It's the kind of movie you can watch with your friends and just talk about for hours afterwards, if you have cool friends. But that said, this obviously isn't going to be for everybody. My girlfriend got pretty tired out by it in the last half hour or so. But, you know, if you like a movie that is tense and evocative, but utterly and completely non-literal, this one is for you. I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
And your dreams can come true if only you let them fly.
This, our first ever Peacock original movie, is, well, it's for kids. This is an early childhood Nick Jr. ass movie, but it does still technically fit all the qualifications I set for me to cover a movie on this series, so here we are. It starts with George and the man with the yellow hat on a train going to the West, which I'm really, it's not the 1800s anymore. Like, what, are you talking about Oregon? Anyway, some farm animals go missing and they go get them. Georgie is curious. The man has a yellow hat, and there's a gopher at one point. There's no real narrative substance. It just kind of exists to help toddlers learn the names of farm animals. And it does that pretty well, because I can name a lot of farm animals now. Dog. Sheep. I could go on. So, I mean, I guess I'll give it a 5 out of 10. It serves its purpose very well. The Babysitter was a trashy, sexy, bloody, horror comedy coming-of-age story directed by Mick G that had pop-up title cards that said things like, "Hell yeah," and "Pocket knife, bitch." Think like if the robbers in Home Alone were sexy, satanic, 20-something-year-old teenagers. At its heart, it's about puberty and being 13 and thinking that all 17-year-olds are perfect and awesome, but eventually growing up just a little bit more and coming to realize that they kind of aren't. I'm spending a lot of time here talking about the original movie because I just find it a lot more interesting to talk about. I like that movie a lot better, if I'm being honest. In the sequel, The Babysitter, Killer Queen, which is the movie I'm actually talking about, the protagonist is now the same age as the teens from the previous movie, and I guess he just dresses like goddamn Luke Wilson in a Wes Anderson movie, because he's just a weirdo, I guess. And then the teens come back from the dead to hunt him down again, but this time the dynamic is a little different. It kind of has something to say about the relationship between millennials and Gen Z, which I think is kind of interesting, but stylistically it feels like it's trying really, really hard to one-up itself in a sort of inorganic and disingenuous way that feels a little lame. It's got some good jokes and some really grody kills, but the world of The Babysitter was never one I really felt compelled to return to, and Killer Queen wasn't really creative enough to justify the return trip, in my opinion. But Ken Marino is out here fucking killing it as goofy dads in Netflix movies month after month, and we have no choice but to stand.
In the morning when I rise, bring it to... I
give it a 6 out of 10. It was fine. Unpregnant is a teen road trip dramedy about a straight-A student who has to go on a cross-country trip through the Deep South to get to the nearest clinic that will discreetly administer an abortion. It's a really funny, charming movie that does have a lot to say about the literal physical consequences of conservative legislation on real-life people. I will say that it does jump the shark pretty insanely at one point in particular, and there's a side plot where one of the teen leads has the fling with this lesbian demolition derby driver that is at least like 24, but I don't know, whatever. Maybe she's 17, who am I to judge? But all that is forgiven because Giancarlo Esposito shows up as a grimy ass, like, libertarian doomsday prepper for just like 15 minutes at the end, which honestly bumps this movie up a whole letter grade for me. Unpregnant gets a 7 out of 10.
Meanwhile, Strongstad names his movie by picking a few boring words from the middle of a boring sentence, and makes his own soundtrack by weeping softly into the wrong end of a saxophone.
It seemed to his son that his father fought the devil all the time.
Perhaps the highest profile movie this month, The Devil All the Time is a pitch-dark, star-studded indie movie. Quote-unquote indie movie.
Pom Pom's movie has A-list movie stars, but they're all working for scale, which I can only assume is a solid gold scale with both sides perfectly balanced with gold bricks.
About the twisted lives of mid-century rural Americans. It's all about a certain kind of sociopathy that can come with fanatic religion and the horrible violent crimes that people commit in Jesus' name. This movie's just jam-packed with great performances from the likes of Henry Melling, Mia Wasikowska, Bill Skarsgård, Robert Pattinson, all kinds of people that whenever you see them in things you think, oh, they're really good, they should be in more things. They're all in this one. All those people are in this one. It's violent, it's tense, it's beautifully shot on 35mm film, and honestly, I didn't really like it. I found it to be long and grim and overly nihilistic, with the central critique of religion being so ham-fisted and unnuanced, it's almost Ricky Gervaisian. It really wants to be a Coen Brothers drama, but the dialogue and the characters don't feel good enough to really draw comparison. The violence was big and meant to be shocking, but it felt so performative that I usually just rolled my eyes at it. And like I said, the performances are all great. Robert Pattinson and Henry Melling really stand out, but they're not in service of anything that I actually really cared about. It's the sort of hyper-serious, violent drama that 17-year-old boys think is the end-all be-all of cinema. This movie did sort of make me realize how much I'm grading on a curve with this series. If I saw this in theaters, I would probably give it a hearty 5 out of 10, maybe a 6 if I was in a good mood, but judging it against its Netflix peers, I feel like it does stand out. Even if I don't like it, it's still creative and unique, and most importantly to me, memorable. And at the end of the day, I think I value that more than I don't like this movie. So The Devil All the Time gets a 7 out of 10 for me. I'm gonna stick with that.
You may rule the day, but I rule the night.
Wikipedia describes Pets United as a German, Chinese, British animated film, which is deeply confusing. It is still technically an English language movie, despite premiering in theaters in China last year. It's apparently a sequel to a German movie called Animals United from 2010. I don't know, man. It's so weird. Like I said, it is in English. The audio track syncs up to their lips in English, but even still, it's definitely been translated at some point. Every once in a while, a character will say something that, like, does technically make sense, but it's just, like, not how you would say that? Anyway, it's like if The Secret Life of Pets had to fight robots, I guess. The city gets taken over by a robot leader, and the pets are the only ones who can stop them, and the zoo animals are the bad guys, and they sing a rap song.
We are clever, we are smart, we have no mercy and no heart.
We're hip and we're cool.
We are the beast and we are rule.
The pig and the pug fall in love. I don't know, man. This is honest to God a top tier, so bad it's good watch, in my opinion. It's so completely bizarre, it's honestly kind of hard to believe what you're watching sometimes. The plot makes no sense, and the gaps in logic are enormous, and every single voice performance is so weird and hilarious. Next time you have all your friends over and it's like 1 a.m. and you're looking for something to do, honestly, go for Pets United. Recommended. Somehow they roped Natalie Dormer and Eddie Marsan into this, which, I don't know, whatever. For the sake of this experiment, though, I'm going to rate this movie at face value, but Like, just know that there's an asterisk next to the 2 out of 10 I give it. Enola Holmes has proven to be a fairly polarizing movie, and I hate to say it, but I'm pretty solidly anti. A lot of people were thoroughly charmed by Millie Bobby Brown in her first honest-to-God movie star vehicle. I suspect her first of many. And I can't really blame them, because she is stupendously charismatic in this. So much so that her facing camera and addressing the audience throughout the entire movie is almost not annoying, which is saying something. Enola Holmes is Sherlock's younger sister, who was raised in seclusion by her Victorian feminist mom, apparently unaware of the sexism of the world. But one day, her mom mysteriously vanishes and leaves Enola some cryptic clues to her location. For some reason. Like, why would she just leave and not tell anyone where she was going unless she didn't want to be found? But then also leave some clues to some puzzles to find her. I don't know. It's whatever. I'm not going to be CinemaSins about this, but it doesn't make sense. Her quest becomes entangled in the vaguest possible governmental scandal, and it ends up being sort of a lukewarm political thriller that has no agenda beyond that when things are bad, we should try to fix them. There's basically no deductive reasoning in it. All the mystery solving is made up of these stunningly simple word puzzles, and you're never given enough information to play along at home, and it just makes it totally inert as a mystery. The production design is fun, and the Daniel Pemberton score is endearingly quirky, but it's tricky for me to find much more praise than that to give this movie. And I know I'm fucking beating a dead horse, but why is Henry Cavill playing Sherlock Holmes? Henry Cavill is my boy. Henry Cavill's one of my guys, but he's so bad in this, though. Anyway, I don't know. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. I'll be generous. I won't spend a lot of time on this, because calling a 90-minute collection of home-recorded monologues a narrative feature film is dubious, but I also won't spend a lot of time on it because I didn't finish it, because I fucking hated it. This movie is the cinematic equivalent of your aunt calling Trump Cheeto Man all the time on Facebook. It's like, no matter how old you are, this thing is aimed squarely at your parents. It's trying to, humanize and reappropriate the idea of the liberal elite, quote-unquote, but every inch of this thing is just condescending and obvious and totally masturbatory for boomer Democrats who are just wallowing in self-pity. It was fucking stupid. I muscled through the Dan Levy monologue because I care about him and I want him to succeed. But after that, I just called it quits. I couldn't do it. I really like Caitlin Dever. I hope she was good in this. I will never know. 1 out of 10. And finally, The Boys in the Band is a movie adaptation of the 2018 revival of the 1968 Broadway play of the same name. This is a pre-Stonewall play about the queer experience living in New York, starring an all-gay cast, so I hope you guys will forgive me if I mostly defer to some other critics on this one. I especially recommend Glenn Weldon's piece for NPR about this, and also the accompanying podcast episode of Pop Culture Happy Hour. It's all about the legacy of this play and how its reputation has changed over the years. Very much recommended. All of that aside, though, I really loved this movie. This text is 50 years old, but the ideas at play still feel fresh and interesting. The cast is phenomenal, and Jim Parsons, of all people, is really knocking it out of the park. A lot of adapted plays can feel really stagnant and boring on film, but Boys in the Band feels really alive. It's tense and it's exciting, even though the setting never changes, which is insanely hard to pull off. This is another surprise movie that I would never have watched if not for this series, and I honestly can give it a hearty recommendation. It does lose points though, because none of these boys seem to be in a band. There isn't a band in this movie, so I don't know why it's called that. Anyway, 8 out of 10.
So that about does it for September. If you were wondering why I didn't cover Cuties, it's because I did. I covered it in another video on this channel, and if you're wondering why I didn't cover The Secret Society of Second-Born Royals on Disney+, it's because I'm gonna make a video about it on this channel. That's a promise. That's me calling my shot. So if I say this and then I don't do it, I'm gonna look like a fucking idiot. And I'm hoping that that's enough to keep me accountable. Honestly, I feel like what I covered this month was a pretty solid rogues gallery of movies. With only a couple of exceptions, I feel like I could have walked out of any of those in a theater and been pretty satisfied with the experience. Last month I mentioned that a lot of these streaming movies tend to feel sort of clinical, like they're like purely functional, but they don't really have any spark of inspiration to them. But I feel like this month, the pendulum kind of swung back the other way. A lot of these movies are either really interesting and cool, or fucking completely bananas and unwatchable. Both of which I think are much more interesting than a movie just being boring. I want to note also that pretty much all of these movies were filmed before production shut down in March, so I'm really curious to see what's gonna happen when that well runs dry. I want to know if we're gonna see a weird dry spell of more Zoom call movies and weird foreign animated flicks, or if Hollywood's gonna be responsible about the changeover and keep things pretty consistent all throughout the year. I don't know, only time will tell, and I will tell you what time told me on this series. Hey, why don't you subscribe? And let me know what you thought about the video, and tell me all about why you liked it. Thanks. So here is the average score for the month, and here is the new score for the whole project so far. Wow. I don't know what they are yet, because I still haven't watched one of the movies when I'm filming this, but that's so surprising.
I like your mullet.
Okay, cool.
You've got a little ducktail going on.
I super like it when you make me feel subconscious about the way I look in the middle of a video. It's super tight. I love that.
Hey, listen.
If you want to follow along and see my running rankings of all these movies, you can follow me on Letterboxd, which is @JepperPack, and my Twitter is the same. And I got a podcast that I do on this channel, and we stream live every Friday night with my sister and another person soon that we haven't announced yet. And, you know, everybody's speculating, they all want to know, but I'm not going to tell you here. You gotta wait like everybody else, buckaroo. And hey, this series of videos doesn't have a title yet, and I'm 2.5 installations in already. And maybe if you have a good idea, you can leave it in the comments, because I kind of don't have any. It needs to be called something, and I don't know what that should be. I'm trying to find a play on words on, like, stream. Like, maybe, like, the bot, like a stream, you know? Like, maybe, like, up a stream without a paddle? Like, up a creek? Is that anything? Don't you fucking be like that. Hey. And I'd also like you to comment on this video and tell me what this video series should be called, because I really don't know what it should be called. Anyway, that's all. Love you guys.